All right, welcome to your own personal deep dive. Today we'll be exploring Elliot Aronson's The Social Animal.
Oh, a classic.
It is. We're going to be diving deep into, social psychology and how all this stuff applies to you.
Yeah, it's amazing how this book just reveals all these hidden forces that shape how we interact, with each other.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it feels like we're kind of just on autopilot,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a whole science behind all this. So to start off, what exactly is social psychology?
So it's all about understanding social influence,
Yeah.
like how our thoughts and feelings and even actions are shaped by, well, other people,
Okay, so that makes sense.
even when we don't realize it's happening.
Right, right. It's kind of like if you went to a restaurant and saw everyone belching after their
Oh,
meal,
totally.
you might feel a little weird not belching.
Yeah, even if you think it's kind of gross.
Exactly.
Well, Aronson actually, he uses that scenario in the book. He talks about this fictional country called Fredonia, and they have that custom.
Got it, got it.
So it shows how we look to others for cues on how to behave, especially in new situations, right?
Right.
Like we want to fit in, but also want to be right. So we use others as a source of information.
So there's kind of an element of going with the flow, but also maybe thinking, well, everyone else is doing it, so it must be the right thing to do?
Yeah, and that's what social psychologists call informational influence.
Okay.
And it's subtle, but can be super powerful.
So that explains why I suddenly get a British accent when I hang out with my friends from London.
Yeah. You're unconsciously adapting to fit in.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And this conformity stuff, it's not just for accents or social customs, right?
No, no, not at all.
Yeah.
One of the most famous experiments in social psychology,
Yeah.
it's the Asch conformity experiment.
Oh, yeah.
And it really showed how strong group pressure can be, even when we know the right answer.
Oh, yeah, the one with the lines. Remind me how that one worked.
So basically, participants had to judge the length of lines, super simple.
Yeah.
But the other participants in the room, they were actually working with the experimenter.
Oh,
And they started giving, obviously wrong answers.
and people actually conform to those wrong answers.
Isn't that wild?
Wow.
A full 35% of them conformed at least once.
Wow, that's a lot.
Even though they could clearly see the answers were wrong, it just shows, how much we crave acceptance.
Yeah, it's 35%. That's more than I would have guessed. I like to think that I wouldn't, cave under pressure,
Right.
but who knows?
You never know until you're in that situation.
It makes you wonder how much we conform, every day without realizing it.
It really does make you wonder, right? Are we voicing our true opinions, or are we just kind of subtly influenced by the group?
Right, good question. Speaking of surprising, the Mildrum experiment.
Oh, yeah.
That one always, kind of creeps me out. Didn't they make participants deliver, electric shocks to someone?
Yeah, they did. And the result, well, they were disturbing. A full 62% of the participants, they obeyed the instructions to deliver shocks up to the highest level,
Wow.
even though they thought they were causing real pain.
Is it, mind-blowing? How could people do that? I mean, was it just blind obedience?
It was complicated, a bunch of factors, but one key thing was the distance between the participant and the victim. You see, obedience was much higher when they couldn't see or hear the person.
So the more removed we are from the consequences, the easier it is to do, unthinkable things?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's kind of
It
terrifying.
makes you think, right? About modern warfare.
Ah.
With all the technology and distance,
Yeah.
it might make it easier for soldiers to, dehumanize the enemy
Yeah.
and follow orders without really grasping the human cost.
It's a very sobering thought. It also makes you wonder about the bystander effect.
Oh, yeah, right.
You think the more people witness a crime, the
Yeah.
more likely someone would help.
Right, you'd think so.
But it's the opposite, isn't it?
It is. The bystander effect. It says the presence of others actually makes people less likely to help. The more witnesses, the less likely anyone will step in.
I remember reading about the Kitty Genovese murder, where she was attacked and people heard her screaming, but nobody did anything.
Right. That's a really tragic example.
Yeah.
One reason is this thing called diffusion of responsibility.
Okay.
We assume, someone else will take care of it.
Yeah, someone else will call 911.
Exactly. And then there's the ambiguity of the situation.
Yeah.
We look to others to see how to react. If no one else seems alarmed, then maybe it's not really an emergency.
So we're all like second-guessing ourselves.
Yeah, like social paralysis.
Wow. And this has been, like, proven in studies, right?
Oh, yeah. Like the Darley and Latane experiment. Participants were less likely to help someone having a seizure if they thought other people were also listening in.
It's almost like we're wired to conform, even when it comes to helping others.
Yeah, it's a powerful force.
So in a world with, like, constant information overload, how do we even decide what to believe? How do we, like, filter all the noise?
Well, that's where persuasion and influence come in. It's
Yeah.
a whole field that studies how people try to change our attitudes and behaviors.
You're right. I mean, we're constantly being persuaded. Advertising, politics, even just conversations with friends.
Yeah.
You know?
It's true. It's like this never-ending battle for, like, our attention
Yeah.
and our beliefs. And it gets even more complicated when you consider all the things that influence, like, how effective a communicator is. For example, their credibility.
Right.
Like, we're way more likely to listen to someone we see as an expert.
Yeah, like, I'm always, like, checking sources, especially online.
Yeah.
You know, like, who are these people? What are their credentials? Are they biased?
That's critical thinking right there. But it's not always about, like, pure logic. Sometimes we're swayed by stuff we don't even realize, like a speaker's attractiveness.
Oh, I remember a study on that. Like, Kennedy's popularity actually went up after the Bay of Pigs thing.
Yep, that's the pratfall effect. Sometimes a blunder can make a competent person seem more likable.
So it's like, they're not perfect, so that makes them more relatable.
Exactly.
Interesting.
It's counterintuitive, but it works.
Okay, so the messenger does matter. But what about the message itself? Like, how does the content, how does that affect us?
There's tons of research on that. One area is fear appeals,
Oh, okay.
like those anti-smoking ads
Oh, right.
with the diseased lungs and stuff.
Yeah.
Those can work, but only if they also tell you how to avoid the danger. Just scaring people without solutions, it can backfire.
So it's not enough to just dwell on the negative. You have to give people a way out.
Exactly. What about how arguments are presented?
Oh, right.
Like one-sided versus two-sided?
Yeah. Does that even matter?
Oh, it totally does.
Uh-huh.
Research shows one-sided arguments, they work best for uninformed audiences. But if people already know a bit about the topic, a two-sided argument is more convincing because it shows you've considered the other side.
It's like you acknowledge the counter-argument and then you dismantle it.
Yep. It shows you're not afraid of the other side. You've really thought about it.
Right.
And that makes you more credible.
This is all fascinating, but it's making my head spin a little. We're like peeling back the layers here.
Yeah, revealing all the hidden influences on our thoughts and actions.
Right, exactly. So now we're going even deeper into social cognition.
That's right.
Okay, I'm ready.
This is all about how we process, store, and use social information. Basically how we make sense of the world, especially when it comes to other people.
Okay, yeah.
And here's a key thing. We're all vulnerable to cognitive biases.
Oh, yeah, like confirmation bias.
That's a big one.
We only look for info that supports what we already believe.
Right. Another is the fundamental attribution error. That's our tendency to overestimate personality and underestimate situational influences when explaining someone's behavior.
So, like, thinking a professor is always tough, when really they're just playing their role.
Exactly.
We don't consider the context.
And this can lead to all sorts of misunderstandings and unfair judgments.
It's a good reminder to be more charitable in our interpretations, I guess.
Totally. We never really know the full story. And speaking of stories, the ones we tell ourselves about ourselves, those are important too.
Yeah, like the self-serving bias, where we take credit for successes but blame failures on outside stuff.
That's a classic.
I've been guilty of that for sure.
It happens to the best of us. It helps protect our self-esteem, but it can also blind us to our own flaws.
Right.
And there's egocentric thought too, where we see ourselves as the center of everything.
Oh, like those politicians who think they control everything, when really they're just part of a larger system.
Yeah, exactly. We all do it to some extent. Exaggerate our own importance.
Well, I'm definitely seeing myself in some of these biases.
It's all part of being human.
Hmm.
And it leads us to a powerful but uncomfortable phenomenon, cognitive dissonance. It's the discomfort we feel when we hold two conflicting beliefs or when our actions don't match our values.
Oh, yeah, I felt that. Like, I know I should eat healthy, but then there's that second slice of pizza
I feel you.
calling my name.
Think about those tobacco executives, the ones who denied the dangers of smoking despite all the evidence.
That's not right.
Aronson uses that example a lot. It's classic cognitive dissonance.
So it's like we'd rather cling to our beliefs, even when they're wrong, than admit we messed up.
Exactly. And to reduce that discomfort, we do all sorts of mental gymnastics. Seek out information that confirms our beliefs, avoid stuff that challenges them, even justify bad actions, no matter what.
It's like our brains are wired to protect our egos, even if it means twisting reality.
It's self-preservation, in a way.
Yeah.
There's also the insufficient justification phenomenon.
I vaguely remember that from the book. How does that work again?
Okay, so if we do something with very little external reward, we're more likely to change our attitude to match the action.
Okay.
Aronson gives the example of kids who were told not to play with a toy, but only mildly threatened.
Okay, yeah.
Later on, they rated the toy as less desirable.
Because they had to justify not playing with it.
Exactly. Without a strong reason, they convinced themselves they didn't want it anyway.
So, like, you trick yourself into believing something to avoid feeling like a hypocrite.
Precisely. And while dissonance can lead to some messed up rationalizations, it can also be used for good.
Oh, really? How so?
We can use it to promote good behavior, like encouraging people to make a public commitment to a cause makes them more likely to follow through, even if they weren't sure at first.
So, like, pledging to recycle more.
Exactly.
That public commitment, it creates dissonance if you don't follow through.
Exactly. We leverage the need for consistency.
That's pretty cool, actually.
It is, and
Yeah.
it makes you think about how we can use all these insights to, like, make the world better, right?
Yeah, it does. It brings us to a topic that's so relevant today. Prejudice.
Oh, yeah.
It's like this deep-seated human tendency, driven by our need to feel good about ourselves and our group, even if it's at the expense of others.
It's definitely tied to all those biases and self-justifications we've been talking about.
Okay, so prejudice is having negative attitudes and behaviors towards people based on their group.
Right.
Race, religion, gender, all that.
You got it. And it can be obvious or subtle.
It's not always just blatant discrimination.
Right. It shows up in little ways, too. Microaggressions, biases we don't even realize we have. Even those jokes that seem harmless but aren't. It's woven into everything.
And that makes it even harder to deal with, right?
It does. So why do we have this us versus them mentality?
Yeah, what causes it?
Well, there's no easy answer, but some things contribute, like competition for resources. That often fuels prejudice.
Oh, right, like migrant workers competing for jobs.
Yeah.
Or different groups fighting for political power.
Exactly. And then there's scapegoating.
Yeah.
Blaming a disliked and powerless group for all of society's problems.
Yeah, like history is full of examples of that.
It is. It's a sad part of human nature.
Yeah, it is.
But we need to acknowledge it to overcome it. Another big factor is conforming to social norms.
Right.
Like, prejudice can be learned from the media, family, friends, all of it.
Kids pick up on those attitudes from their parents or from what they see on TV.
It's true. It becomes normal, so it's harder to question.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then there's the role of stereotypes, right?
Oh, huge.
Those simplified beliefs about groups.
They lead to unfair generalizations.
We all use them to some extent.
Yeah. But we have to be aware of how they can, like, distort how we see people.
And one of the worst things about stereotypes is that they can become self-fulfilling prophecies, right?
Totally. If you believe a group is lazy, you might treat them differently.
And then they end up acting in a way that confirms your bias.
Exactly. A vicious cycle.
This is all really thought-provoking. I'm seeing the world differently already.
We've only just scratched the surface.
I know, and we haven't even finished discussing all the material.
In the next part, we'll explore how all this applies to your life.
I can't wait. This has been eye-opening. I think our listeners really starting to understand how strong these social forces are, even if we're not aware of them.
Exactly. That's the first step, understanding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Once we see these influences, we can start making more conscious choices in how we interact with others.
It's like taking control instead of being controlled.
And that's powerful.
Welcome back to our deep dive into social psychology. I feel like we just scratched the surface of how our behavior is shaped by, all these unseen forces. Now, let's get practical. How can understanding these principles actually help you, navigate the social world?
It starts with awareness, really, like simply knowing about things like the bystander effect.
Okay.
That can change how you react in a situation.
So if I see someone who might need help, I shouldn't just assume someone else will step in.
Right. That assumption, that's often what leads to inaction.
Gotcha.
But if you're aware of it, you can, choose to be part of the solution.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about all the information, especially like online? How can I be less swayed by persuasive tactics, especially when I don't even realize they're being used?
We talked about credibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not enough to just, accept what you see. You got to ask yourself, who's saying this? What's their agenda? What evidence do they have?
It's like being a detective, right?
Exactly. You got to look for clues to see if something's trustworthy or not.
Yeah.
And that goes for your own beliefs, too.
Oh, right.
Remember confirmation bias?
Yeah.
We tend to look for stuff that supports what we already think.
Oh, I do that all the time.
Yeah.
It's so easy to just hang out with people who agree with you.
It's comfortable,
Yeah, it is.
but it doesn't really challenge us to grow, does it?
True.
One way to fight that is to actually seek out information that disagrees with you.
Oh, that's hard.
It can be uncomfortable, but it's how you, refine your own thinking.
Like, that saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Exactly.
You need those different viewpoints to, spark new ideas.
Right.
Speaking of ideas, decisions, we make so many every day. Can social psychology help us make better ones?
Absolutely. One thing to understand is framing. The way a choice is presented can really affect our decisions,
Okay.
even if the options are the same.
Oh, like in the book, the example about medical treatments.
Yeah.
People are more likely to choose one if it's framed in terms of survival rates rather than mortality rates.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though it's the same outcome, just worded differently.
It's powerful.
Wow.
So next time you got to make a decision, try reframing it. See if it changes your perspective.
That's a cool trick, like looking at a problem from a different angle.
Yeah. And watch out for this. Escalation of commitment.
Okay.
We talked about how people get so invested in something, they stick with it, even when it's not working.
Oh, yeah, like pouring money into a failing business. Or staying in a relationship that's, way past its expiration date.
Yeah. Those sunk costs, they make it hard to walk away.
Even when it's the best thing to do.
But being aware of that can help you cut your losses,
Yeah, it can. That's good advice. Okay, relationships are a big part of life. What can social psychology teach us about those?
Well, a basic principle is reciprocity. We tend to like people who like us.
Okay.
And we're more likely to help those who've helped us.
Like a golden rule, right?
It is. Treat others how you want to be treated. But, it's actually backed by science.
That's pretty cool.
So small acts of kindness can really go a long way in building relationships.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be something huge. A thank you note, offering to help with something small.
Yeah, it's those little things.
Those moments of connection, they build up over time. And speaking of connection, clear communication is so important.
Definitely. Yeah.
Remember how miscommunication can cause conflicts. So how can we all become better communicators?
For me, active listening is key. It's not just hearing the words. It's trying to understand what the other person's really saying.
Yes. You're paying attention to everything, their tone, their body language.
Yeah.
Do their words match their actions?
It's like being a detective again, right?
It is. And when you're talking, be clear, direct. Don't assume they know how you feel.
Yeah, that's important. And also, being mindful of the impact of our words.
Absolutely.
Even if you don't mean something in a bad way, it could still hurt someone.
Right. That's where empathy comes in.
Yeah.
Put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
How might they take what you're saying?
Okay, so be sensitive to their feelings, even if I don't fully get their perspective.
Exactly. Now, this is something I struggle with. Dealing with difficult people. We all have to deal with them. A tough boss, a friend who's passive-aggressive.
Oh, yeah.
Family members who just know how to push your buttons.
Oh, tell me about it.
So, any advice from social psych on how to handle that?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Well, remember that fundamental attribution error?
Yeah.
We jump to conclusions about personality, think someone's just a jerk.
Right.
But what if it's more than that? What if they're stressed, dealing with stuff you don't know about?
So, have compassion, try to see their side of things.
This doesn't mean you excuse their behavior, but it might help you respond better.
So be curious, not judgmental. What's going on with this person that makes them act this way?
Yeah, that curiosity can open up communication. And sometimes the best thing is to just, disengage.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to fight every battle.
Right.
Especially if it's just dragging you down.
Yeah, that's true.
Protect yourself from that negativity.
It's about boundaries, right?
Right. Your mental health matters. Especially with difficult people. We've talked a lot about the downsides of social influence, conformity, prejudice.
Yeah.
But can we use these forces for good?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, it would be kind of sad if all this knowledge just made us cynical.
No, there's hope. One way is through social norms.
Okay.
Like those signs in hotels, that say most guests reuse their towels.
Oh, yeah. To save water.
Exactly.
They make you feel bad about getting new towels every day.
See? It works.
Yeah, it does.
By highlighting what most people do, we can encourage others to do the same.
We want to fit in,
We're
right?
social creatures.
So we're like tapping into that desire to conform,
Yeah.
but for a good cause.
Exactly. Another thing is modeling.
Okay.
When people see good behavior, they're more likely to copy it.
Actions speak louder than words,
That's
right?
it. If you want more kindness in the world, be kind yourself.
I love that. It's inspiring.
Your actions can inspire others.
So we all have the power to make a difference, even in small ways.
We do.
We've covered so much in this deep dive. Any last thoughts for our listeners?
Yeah, one thing. Now that you know all this about social influence, pay attention to how it works in your own life.
Okay.
Notice when you're conforming, when you're judging, when you're feeling that dissonance.
It's like becoming a scientist of your own behavior.
Exactly. That self-awareness, that's the first step.
Yeah, to making better choices.
Right, to living a more authentic life.
It's taking control rather than being controlled.
And that's what makes this knowledge so powerful.
Welcome back to our final part of this social psychology deep dive.
Whew. I gotta say, I'm a little overwhelmed by all this stuff about how our minds work.
I know, right? It's a lot to take in.
It is, but it's also super fascinating.
We've covered like conformity, obedience, biases, persuasion. It's like we peeked behind the curtain of human nature.
We did, and it makes me wonder, after learning all this, do you feel more optimistic or pessimistic about humanity?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It is.
On one hand, we see how easily we're manipulated, how quick we are to judge, how we justify our bad decisions. It's humbling, for sure.
It is. But then there's the other side,
Yeah.
where we see amazing acts of kindness, people fighting for justice.
Right.
How do we, make sense of those two sides? I think education is key. The more we understand these influences, the better we can challenge them. It's like shining a light on those biases we don't even realize we have.
So we're not just controlled by them, we can actually make conscious choices.
Exactly. And it's not just about each of us individually. We need systems that encourage fairness and cooperation.
Oh, right. Like Aronson talks about the jigsaw classroom, right?
Yeah.
Where students from different backgrounds have to work together.
It's a great model for breaking down those us versus them barriers.
Yeah, it is. When everyone has a shared goal, those differences don't matter as much.
Right. And the media, they have a big role to play too. Instead of focusing on conflict and stereotypes, they could show more examples of people getting along.
Totally. The media is so powerful, it shapes how we see the world. Imagine if they used that power to promote empathy instead of, outrage.
It would be amazing.
It would. I guess it comes down to each of us making a choice. Right? Do we give in to those negative instincts? Or do we choose to be kind, understanding, compassionate?
That's the big question, isn't it? We have the potential for both.
Yeah, we do. And that's kind of scary, but also hopeful. Like even small acts of kindness can make a difference.
They really can. Never underestimate a smile, a helping hand, a kind word. It all matters.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive into social psychology. I'm definitely seeing the world in a new light.
I'm glad to hear that. It's been great exploring all this with you.
It has. And remember, this isn't the end. Keep learning, keep questioning, keep trying to be the best version of yourself. And to our listener, thanks for joining us on this journey. Remember, knowledge is power. Now that you have these insights, use them to navigate your social world. Be more aware, more compassionate, and maybe even a little wiser.
Until next time, keep those minds open and those hearts engaged.